Short script, love. Interior, club, night. An upscale club, beautiful people, expensively dressed. A crowded dance floor, a busy bar. Men and women with fangs mingle comfortably with normal humans. The interaction between humans and vampires is casual, commonplace, comfortable. They're just like everybody else. But not. At the bar, man number 1, 20s, very handsome, and a tall, stunning woman, apparently 20s, long black hair, milky white skin, blood-red lips. She is Constance, a vampire. She takes a sip from her martini. Her fangs slide along the edge of the glass, making a small, ringing sound. She reaches up and caresses man number 1's neck.
What a lovely throat.
Her glossy black fingernails catch the light as she traces the line of his jaw, the curve of his Adam's apple, the slight pulse of his carotid artery below his ear. She can hear the blood coursing through his veins. It calls out to her, like a lover's voice from far away. Man number 1 takes her hand, kisses her fingertips, pulls her close.
No.
Constance presses her body against his.
Yes.
They move away from the bar. Exterior, alley outside bar, night. Constance and man number 1 exit the bar. Constance turns to him, puts her hands on his shoulders, and lets him push her against the wall. He pushes her skirt up. Constance smiles, bares her fangs. She sinks her fangs into his throat and starts to grind his hips against her. Exterior, alley outside bar, night. Constance and man number 1 walk out of the alley. He has his arm around her. She has her head on his shoulder, a dreamy look in her eyes.
That was delicious.
You weren't so bad yourself.
They get into his car.
Can I drop you someplace?
No thanks. I'll walk.
Alone?
Always.
She turns and walks away. Exterior, Constance's apartment building, night. Constance approaches a luxury apartment building. A young man, Val, 20s, nice looking, nothing like the men Constance feeds from, exits the building and walks towards Constance. As he gets near her, he looks up and smiles. For Constance, it's true love at first sight.
Hi.
Hi.
They stand for a moment, just looking at each other.
Nice night.
Lovely.
Val looks back at the apartment building.
You live there?
Yes.
Well, maybe I'll see you again. Good night.
Good night.
Val nods and walks away. Constance watches him for a moment, then slowly enters the building. Interior, Constance's apartment, night. Constance is about to put her keys down on the table, then stops, looks at the keys, then at the door. She doesn't remember anything after seeing Val. She smiles to herself and tosses her keys onto the table. Exterior, city, day. In fast motion, the sun rises and sets. Night falls. Exterior, Constance's apartment building, night. Constance exits the building. Exterior, club, night. Constance walks into the club. Interior, club, night. Constance enters and walks up to the bar. Men and women admire her as she passes. She ignores them. She orders a drink. Men all around her devour her with their eyes. She gets her drink, sips at it, stares straight ahead. Images of Val flash through her mind. Man number 2, tall, model handsome, slides up next to her.
Alone tonight?
Constance doesn't look at him.
Every night.
I could change that.
Constance turns to look at him. She smiles, puts down her drink.
Well, I am a little hungry.
Exterior, alley outside club, night. Constance and man number 2 are against the wall. Constance is feeding. Suddenly, Constance rips her fangs free and shoves man number 2 away.
Hey, what the
I'm done.
Well, I'm not.
He moves towards her, reaches out to grab her. Constance glares at him, her back to the alley wall.
I said...
Constance grabs him by the throat, easily lifts him clean off his feet. He gasps for air.
I'm done.
She slams him against the wall and stalks out of the alley. Exterior, street, night. Constance walks down the street. She's angry. 2 men are walking towards her.
Hey, honey, looking for a snack?
I'm full.
Not yet, but you will be.
Man number 4 grabs her arm. She grabs his hand and starts to crush his fingers, forcing him to his knees. Man number 4 grits his teeth against the pain. Man number 3 moves forward, but Constance snaps her head around, bares her bloody fangs, and hisses. Terrified, man 3 takes a step back. He turns and runs. Constance looks down at man number 4.
I never snack between meals. It's bad for the figure.
Yeah, okay, sure.
Constance lets go of him and walks away. Exterior, Constance's apartment building, night. Constance walks up to her apartment building. She looks at the front door, then continues walking past it. Montage. Constance with man number 1 and man number 2. Her meeting with Val. Exterior, bridge, night. Constance wanders aimlessly, finds herself on a bridge. A figure is leaning on the rail, looking at nothing. It's Val. Constance walks slowly towards him.
I often come here when I need to think.
Val looks up, recognizes her, and smiles.
That's fine.
What?
I don't know why I came here.
They look at each other. She gets lost in his eyes for a moment. Constance stands beside him, and they both look off to nothing.
I'm a vampire.
I know.
It bothers you.
No, well, a little.
Pause.
What's your name?
Val.
Val?
Short for Valor. Parents thought it was a strong name.
It is. I'm Constance. I'm not sure what my parents were thinking.
It's a lovely name.
They continue talking. Exterior, Constance's apartment building, night. Constance and Val walk up to the building. Constance turns to him.
Thank you for not treating me like
Yeah, I really enjoyed talking to you.
He takes a pen and a card from his pocket, quickly scribbles his number on it, gives it to her.
I'd like to see you again.
I'd like that too.
Good night.
Good night.
There's an awkward moment. Then Constance turns and enters the building. Exterior, day. The sun sets. Night falls. Interior, Constance's apartment, bedroom, night. Constance in bed, staring at the ceiling. She reaches out and turns on the light. She sees Val's card on the nightstand, thinks for a moment, then picks up the phone and dials. Exterior, street, night. Constance and Val, walking, talking, laughing. Dissolve 2. Exterior, bridge, night. Constance and Val at the bridge. They look deeply into each other's eyes. Their lips meet. Val slides his lips down and kisses her neck. Constance's eyes widen. She calmly bares her fangs and bites Val. Val tenses, but doesn't try to stop her. Suddenly, Constance realizes what she's doing. Her eyes widen. She tears her fangs free and pushes Val away. Val reaches up and touches his neck. His hand comes away bloody. Constance buries her face in her hands.
No, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry.
She begins to sob. Val quickly wipes his hand clean with a handkerchief, then puts his hands on Constance's shoulder.
Hey, it's okay. I'm fine.
No, I fed from you. I treated you just like... I'm sorry. I'm so sorry.
Val takes her in his arms and holds her. Dissolve 2. Exterior, Constance's apartment building, night. Constance and Val, holding hands, walk up to the front door.
I mean
I need to think.
He takes her hands, looks deeply into her eyes. They kiss. Constance turns and enters the building. Dissolve 2. Interior, Constance's apartment, balcony, night. Constance is leaning against the railing, looking out at the city. Sitting behind her is another vampire, Clayton, 30s, sipping from a brandy snifter. Curled up on the floor at Clayton's feet, her head resting against his thighs, Velvet, 20s, a very sexy, full-on goth vampire. Velvet's unblinking eyes devour Constance as Clayton gently strokes her hair.
I'm in love.
You're insane.
Velvet clearly is.
I'm afraid I must agree with Velvet. I knew it would happen to you eventually. Women are so fragile.
Constance turns to them.
Clayton, I'm neither insane nor fragile. You know that.
No, not fragile.
I know that no mortal could ever keep up with your appetite. Even I have had moments when I was thoroughly convinced I would be utterly consumed by your passion.
You never seem to mind.
Mind, Constance, my child, I live for those moments. Don't you realize that if the great beyond beckons, when you are in flagrante delicto, it is an express ticket to heaven. And for our kind, tickets to that destination are rare, if not unique.
Constance turns away to look out at the city.
How many times have you seen him?
Twice.
Oh, child, haven't you learned anything about patience in 300 years?
Must be patient.
Haven't you heard of love at first sight?
It's a form of hysterical insanity afflicting those with fragile minds.
Clayton swirls his brandy, takes a sip.
Have you tasted him?
No,
Have you slept with him?
no.
Then how can you possibly know anything about him?
I know that I love him.
Velvet laughs, then suddenly stops.
Surely you've learned by now how useless and dangerous that emotion can be. It isn't necessary, not for certain things.
He caresses Velvet's cheek. She purrs like a cat, never taking her eyes off of Constance.
Without it, certain things have gotten so boring.
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 Sakes, child, if you'd gone insane, Velvet, honey, how are we going to show dear Constance the error of her ways?
Velvet slowly stands up, every movement oozing sex, her eyes never leaving Constance. Clayton smiles and watches. Velvet stands very close to Constance, but doesn't touch her.
Never boring.
Clayton puts down his drink, stands up and saunters over to stand behind Velvet. He puts his hand on her shoulder. Her unwavering gaze still on Constance, Velvet slowly tilts her head and places her cheek against Clayton's hand. Cut 2. Interior, Constance's apartment. Night. The bed is a seething mass of silken sheets. There are bodies beneath them. The sheets billow out with the outline of a thigh, an arm, a hand. Wind blows through the open French doors, making the silk curtains dance in time with the sheets. Outside, a storm brews, rolling clouds, thunder in the distance. Suddenly, lightning. Dissolve 2. Interior, Constance's apartment. Dawn. In bed, Velvet lies with her head on Clayton's chest. They're both asleep. Constance is standing, looking out the window. Dawn is breaking. The light from outside is growing. The sun is rising. Its light touches Constance's face. She winces, quickly draws the curtains. She turns and looks at Clayton and Velvet, then goes and picks up her phone, dials a number.
It's Constance. I'm sorry for calling so early. I need to see you. Tonight.
Dissolve 2. Exterior, bridge, night. Constance waits on the bridge. She looks left and right, and is startled when a man seems to appear in front of her. He is Father Duncan, a priest in his 40s.
Father Duncan.
You seem surprised.
Well, that's a good trick, sneaking up on a vampire.
No, I mean surprised that I came.
I wasn't sure.
God's love is greater than your fear of him.
Even so, Father. No crosses if you don't mind.
Of course.
Constance looks at him for a moment, then starts walking. Father Duncan falls in beside her.
I need forgiveness.
Don't we all?
Father, I'm serious.
So am I.
I'm in love.
Duncan looks at her and waits. This is big, coming from a vampire.
I haven't felt like this in a long time. Not since I was a mortal. And that didn't end happily.
How does he feel about your situation?
He wants to come over. To be one of us, to be with me. Forever.
Not very happy this time either, I see.
Yes, you do see, don't you? I love him. He's so wonderful, so good. I don't want him to be like me, always on the hunt, feeding, never seeing the sun. But if I don't turn him, I know he'll have someone else do it. He'll be damned, like me. I don't want that.
The priest smiles at her, gently embraces her, then puts his hands on her shoulders, looks into her eyes.
What do you need from me?
Fade to black. Fade up. Exterior, church, day. Establishing. Cut 2. Interior, church, day. Sunlight streams in through the large rose window, bathing the interior of the church. Father Duncan kneels before the altar.
Heavenly Father, one of the lost children came to me last night. I know you and I haven't always seen eye to eye about them over the years. There are some who are well and truly damned and deserve your righteous wrath and whatever punishment you see fit. But this one, I think I've mentioned her to you once or twice. She fears you. All the things she has done, what she is, I have told her many times that no one is beyond salvation, that your love is unconditional and pure, but she has her doubts. She asked for my help. There is a man whom she cares deeply for. He is willing to risk eternal damnation to be with her. Must it be eternal? Is there no way to save them both? You and I are in the business of saving souls. There must be a way.
Dissolve to exterior street, night. Val waits outside a restaurant. Constance walks up to him. They embrace.
I've missed you.
He takes her hand, starts to enter the restaurant.
Let's go for a walk.
Okay.
They turn away from the restaurant. Suddenly, Velvet appears in front of them.
Never boring.
Constance and Val quickly walk away. Velvet turns to watch them go. Clayton comes up behind Velvet, puts his hand on her shoulder. Still looking after Constance, her eyes filled with sadness. Velvet slowly tilts her head and gently rubs her cheek against his hand. Dissolve to exterior bridge, night. Constance and Val walk to the railing, look out to the night. She turns to him. They embrace. Their lips meet. A single tear falls from beneath Constance's eyelashes as she takes his face in her hands. She breaks their kiss, looks into his eyes.
I love you.
She wrenches his head around, snapping his neck. His body slowly collapses to the pavement. Exterior church rectory, night. Father Duncan exits the rectory, closes the door behind him. Constance steps out of the shadows.
Father, forgive me.
Duncan goes to her, embraces her. She looks up into his eyes.
Please.
Duncan releases her and steps away.
I can't.
He turns to go back to the rectory. Constance bares her fangs and attacks him, slamming him against the wall of the rectory. Duncan struggles with Constance, her fangs close in on his throat. Suddenly, Constance throws her head back, her mouth wide, almost in ecstasy. She slides down Duncan's body and crumples to the sidewalk, a crucifix impaled in her chest.
Please, forgive me.
Duncan quickly kneels beside her and begins giving her last rites.
In nomine Patris.
Constance begins to dissolve. She looks up at Father Duggins.
Now, we can be together. Bless you, Father.
Father Duggins finishes the last rites. Constance's body dissolves into dust. Fade out.